Are still coming in, but within the next 2 or 3 minutes I would like to start, otherwise we will lose too much time of our program. Just wait for another 2 minutes. Okay, so welcome to this slot, which is called Opening the Expert's Toolbox. And since we are in the university theater, we thought that we might do it a little bit like, not like a theater performance, but it's a kind of played by ear theater type of thing, where you as the audience will be able to join in after maybe the first round or so. So you're welcome to join in. In the context of this seminar, the main topic is the role of the Bologna expert and of the higher education reform expert. We've heard interesting keynotes from the, if I may say so, from the political perspective, but here are real-life specimens. Here are real-life higher education reform experts and Bologna experts, and I will try to elicit from them tools, instruments, things they have tried to do, they have done, and then of course you're welcome to join in with your own experience. To make my life easier, the colleagues have agreed to introduce themselves briefly, so I'll pass the microphone to our student colleague.
Hello, dear participants. My name is Arünas Mark. I'm currently holding a position of Education and Science Program Coordinator in Lithuanian National Commission for UNESCO. Prior to that, I was a President of National Union of Student Representations, and that's how long story short, that's how I got involved into being a Bologna expert.
Okay, hello, welcome to our humble house. I'm Juan Duque. I've got the name of a king and the surname a little bit less, Duque, so you will always remember me. I'm the head of the international office at the University of Deusto in the north of Spain, in Bilbao, a small city, well known by the Guggenheim Museum. I've been involved in Bologna before Bologna existed, as ECTS counselor, promoter, etc., since the early 90s. And I've been surprised here last week with this kind invitation to take part in something I didn't know what to do. So we are here to improvise, as our chairman said. And just a short remark regarding the previous presentations, because the Spanish colleagues we were talking during the coffee about the red color in one of the maps presented, and we were a bit astonished about the accuracy of some data because we think things are different, but maybe in the next report. But we got the conclusion that it's because the football championship is going to start pretty soon, and red is the color of our selection. So,
hello, everybody. First of all, I am not Rana, Ms. Rana. I have been asked to replace her because she had some problems coming today. So my name is Shafiq Mokbel. I am from the University of Balamand in Lebanon, and I have been a higher education reform expert for 3 or 4 years from now. And well, let's see how we can turn it on.
Great. So in Jakob Fuchs' presentation today, we heard that Bologna experts and higher education reform experts, they have to deal with a lot of stakeholders. There are ministries, people in the ministries, bureaucracies, there are universities, and we all know that universities are diverse. There are rectors, there are deans, there are international relation officers, there are ECTS coordinators, there are Bologna coordinators, and there are the grassroots people, the teachers and the students. And I remember when we had our first Bologna seminar a couple of years ago in Vienna, around Easter time it was, we were trying to find or to discuss, first of all, the role of the Bologna expert, or yeah, I think Bologna promoter it was called then, I'm not sure. And then we came up with the idea that a Bologna expert and a higher education reform expert has to translate a lot and to mediate a lot between the worlds. Have you, in your rich experience, found any particularly good ways or successful ways to mediate, to discuss with the different stakeholders? Any? Okay, just grab the mic.
In Lebanon, where we are meeting every week in the campus office, actually, which is within the Ministry of Education. And since the beginning, we've identified a similarity in the Bologna process and Lebanon. Lebanon is a very diverse country, and we have a lot of educational system running together in parallel. So from the beginning, we have succeeded convincing the ministry and the different stakeholders that the Bologna process, due to the diversity of Europe, can be inspiring for us. So this was the first things, and then throughout the years now, we were being able to show how some of the tools that belongs that comes from what we've got in such conferences can be helpful to solve some problems. And in addition, each of us has connections with different. We are three actually, connection with different stakeholders. For example, Pierre is with the Association of the Lebanese Universities. Mazen has been for several years now the advisor of the minister, of different ministers. And myself, I have connection with UNESCO and different universities. So this helps actually. And we, at every year when we put this strategic plan for the coming years, we take into consideration what are the needs and what we feel can come through. And this is how we do actually.
So each of you relates to different groups of stakeholders, and when you meet, do you from time to time also invite stakeholders to take part in your discussion, or do you work via the sort of relational, via your relations?
Yeah, actually we meet at a weekly basis, and every week everyone report to the others what happened, and we have, like in this meeting or alone or standalone, we prepare some materials that each of us will go and present to the different stakeholders, and when there is opportunity, we can take it. For example, we have been involved in several draft laws that have been set in the country. We have been involved in different conferences. We have training sessions. So we do like this. Yeah.
Okay.
Specimen number one. I think my story in Bologna process was a bit more funny, maybe not that expressive, but I remember back some days, like in 2005, in one higher education institution, I will not tell its name because it will be even more funny, there was a presentation on ECTS as a new thing, because in the Senate, members of the Senate had no clue what ECTS is. So after a half-hour presentation going through the headlines and showing what ECTS really stands for, there was only one question from the members of the Senate, and it was asked by a very respected professor, and the question was, which bank gives those credits? So what I want to say by this, there are really different approaches in Bologna processes. At least from my experience as a student Bologna expert, it often felt like a banging your head into the wall and trying to explain something when people do not even listen to you because you're just a student. Who are you to say something to the rector, for example, of some university? And during my experience, I've personally found that the best approach is actually to go through the legislation. If there are a lot of problems in at least our national context, in Lithuanian national context, with Bologna process being implemented in terms of legislation. And when we try to fix something there, through maybe student unions, through some other stakeholders, it is sometimes a bit easier to do. You implement it from the other side. On the other hand, Bologna has to be a culture. I mean, there is no use of a Bologna expert saying anything if a third party, the party which is listening to what the Bologna expert is saying or not listening, is interested into that. If the approach is sincere and if the expertise of a certain person is needed, then a lot of changes can be implemented. If it is not, it's just empty speeches from, like tennis. I say that quality assurance is very important. I also say that quality insurance is very important, but I don't know if I will do something about it.
Okay, thank you.
In our case, sometimes I think the group of Bologna experts in Spain, we feel like preachers among believers, in the sense that it's easier to talk with the stakeholders who are closer to international relations or to the international activities. Oh. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you. So in that sense, in that respect, we have prepared seminars and workshops with people. The Conference of Rectors in Spain have different subgroups. And there's one specific for international relations and another for students. And then we have organized seminars and activities calling them up to participate. And in that sense, I think it's quite relevant, the success of the presentations. But as I said, sometimes you feel like a preacher among believers because you don't have to do so much to convince them about the necessity of going ahead with the process. We have been discussing in our last meetings from the Bologna experts team in Spain how we could get to the political sector more closely, in the sense that sometimes you have the impression that you are promoting something that has nothing to influence on the new legislation or on the new activities done by the Ministry of Education or by the universities themselves. In one of the previous presentations, you said that sometimes the risk of the Bologna process is that it is translated into national, local culture, or interpreted as something related to the tradition, educational tradition of the country. And when you try to express that you disagree with that, they look at you like, a specimen in extinction. And it's not so easy. So I think that maybe at national level, but also at central level in Europe, to give more relevance to the role of the Bologna experts in the countries, I think would be interesting in the sense that we are trying to make clear in the different countries what is being decided or what are the trends at European level, and I think that sometimes it's not so easy to do that.
I'll be coming back to the political level a little bit later, also in connection with what you told me in the preparation. But my question to the audience would be: are we, as Bologna experts, are we always talking to the same people? And are we talking to the right people inside higher education institutions? We talk to national rectors' conferences. We have our friends in the international offices. But do do we reach those people that write the curricula? That is, do we reach the experts in the field that we need in order to define the learning outcomes for the various fields that we need them? And that is my question to the audience about your experience or experiences as Bologna experts or as higher education reform experts. So I don't know whether we have our nice colleagues with the microphones. There is the lady in the middle of the... okay. And then another experience.
Елена Истилева, Kazakhstan. So I found that in many cases we cannot reach a broader audience, our different stakeholders, because the conferences very often organized in the way that usually the top representatives are invited. But I just wanted to share the example of Kazakhstan we did till this year. During 2 years, we did certain publications, and our experts, each of us, are specializing in certain area of expertise. So we were trying to put all the key issues of Bologna process, then the best practices and policy recommendations, how it could be implemented in our countries. So I found that it works in a way that, it helps both rectors, and I also know that our Ministry of Education was involved. I mean, they were reading those publications and even provided some remarks about each of those publications, as well as the teachers or faculty members who have, who are implementing in practice those recommendations. But somehow I know that funds are not provided anymore for those publications, but at the same time, I think this is the most effective tool. So because conferences and seminars are very specific, target-oriented groups only. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Then the lady in the third row.
Okay. Carmen Vizcarro from Spain, and as Juan Carlos Duque explained, we have also divided the team in different themes or topics, and we do organize these meetings to give the information, translate with some layers of the university. But in addition to that, I think there are some other practices which are very interesting. I myself am involved in learning outcomes assessment. And there, we have tried to have a pilot study where different universities have been involved. At first, to speak about universities would be too much, because really there were a few teachers from different universities. Now, after 2 years of work, other teachers in these universities have joined, and at this moment, there are 3 universities who are interested at the rectorate level. So I would say that's interesting. Of course, that's hard work, because you have to work with every single person. But I would say that's a way of involving people at the layer of defining and assessing learning outcomes.
Does that mean that people start seeing advantages of using the tools, of using the instruments?
Absolutely. Actually, at the meeting we organized last year, it was the teachers who had been involved in the project who actually were so keen, they really could reach their their peers, because it's not, I mean, for me, preaching, as Juan Carlos said, that's one thing. Another teacher saying, this is possible, and this is interesting, and this leads you to a new way of working, that was very effective, I would say.
One way of success might be to try to implement processes of peer learning, where professors tell each other that it's interesting and that they could go along this way.
Well, of course, that's only my third year, so I'm only guessing, but in these 3 years, more people are involved, and more people, I would say, are really convinced that this is something different, but not so different from what they were doing already. So it's not so extremely difficult. They just renounce and say, I cannot do that. That's too hard for me.
Okay, thank you. Over there.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to present our experience in Palestine in implementing Bologna process. The Ministry of Higher Education have several meetings with deans from different universities as well as vice rectors of planning. And to summarize the result of these meetings, I can say that some opinions comes from the deans for some programs, especially in engineering, saying that it will be very difficult for them to have less like 7 years in order to offer a bachelor plus a master degree. And the explanation for this is, if we speak, I am speaking on behalf of them, on core content, it will be easy. So they can offer like a 5-year bachelor in engineering plus, or maybe for half, and a master within 1.5 years and so on. But when they speak about the requirements for the university, for any graduate to have a certificate from the university, we are speaking about a long-term period. This will be not less than 7 years. So the question is, or the difficulty is, how can we deal with these courses that the university require any graduate from it to have them, and no graduation before having these requirement courses? Some of them required for the university, some of them required for the college itself. Other thing is related to the credit transfer system. In my country, they depend on the American credit system. And the question is, it will be easy for them, as an opinion, to transfer to the student work system if they find like a formula. They can just make an equivalent. And the formula is, this is why we are here, in order to reach like some solution for this. But I don't think, in their opinion, that it will be a difficult in making the equivalent or the transfer. Third thing, when we speak about NQF and QA and C, these we already have, and we can say that we are progressing very well in these, and it will not be a problem at all. The things which is really difficult is the time and the credit. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have any comments right now, or we needn't have? It's just collecting statements and ideas. But could I come back to the policy level that you mentioned? And I would like to ask you, as a student representative, in what way have you, or could you were talking about legislation, and now we are talking about the European level, and we are talking about the national level, and we are talking about an institutional level. Have you had any experience in relating these three levels?
Well, I would say partial experience. If speaking about the national level, which was maybe most important for me in 2009, and maybe international level is much more important for me now than it was then, we had a reform on higher education, so we had a new law upcoming, and as much as we were capable of, we tried to change it to be in line with Bologna process. Of course, not everything worked, but we've done something like 30 amendments successfully then. So at least small part of it went in. And implementation of Bologna process, I see it as a long-term thing. You cannot just implement it with legislation in one day. We had such efforts in some countries actually, and that didn't work. I think everyone knows what are we speaking about. And speaking about international level, I think in something like a 2009, we just understood that sometimes you have actually approached that wall, which you cannot bank with your head, and you have to change something in different perspectives. So we started cooperating with European institutions, responsible for the opinion of civil society, like European Economic and Social Committee. We started lobbying them, not lobbying actually, but consulting with them, asking them to include our views in their opinions, and that also worked. We've done that with Youth on the Move. We've done the same with Erasmus for All now. And to bring this into the institutional context, this is, I think, the most difficult part. Because on the institutional level, you have to speak not with a minister, not with a cabinet. You have to interact with every single person working in the institution, starting from the top, going to bottom, or vice versa. And if there is no support from students, for example, or from at least the rectorate, this usually turns up quite useless.
Well, I was just recalling that recently, last month, we had a meeting organized by the National Agency for the 25th anniversary of Erasmus, and we had a meeting the whole day with students. And I was in one of the sessions of the workshops on academic recognition. And out of the 20, there were Erasmus students, Spanish and European Erasmus students present at the meeting. And to our astonishment, 95% of the students didn't receive precise information on mobility, on the students' chart, on learning. Most of them didn't know what a learning agreement was. They all knew that they were registered in ECTS credits, but that's all. And we were really astonished because most of the European countries have changed the legislation. They have included ECTS with all its different key documents as part of the legislation. But we saw that in many countries we don't use it. So it is useless to have laws telling what we have to do, and then the institutions or the countries don't fulfill that legal requirements. And I'm just giving this small example on mobility, which is the most successful program within education, the student mobility within Europe. But unfortunately, and we are in 2012, we are not doing it. And there are countries where it's approved by law, but there is no correspondence with the actual reality of the mobility.
Well, in our case, we have similar argument like my colleague has mentioned from Palestine. We have American system, so why moving to ECTS, for example? Why do we need the qualification frameworks? As I said, since the beginning, with all the stakeholders, we have this attitude as as mediator and taking the model as an inspiring model. So it's always arguing with all the stakeholders in different meetings, saying, for example, that ECTS is not just a credit like the American credit, so how much the professor should give as lecture in terms of those credits. And it's about changing the mindset and providing arguments. Qualification framework is about labor market also. If you want to be on the international labor market, you have to define what are the qualifications, etc. So, and some argument passed through, including into legislations. And for example, you have the American University of Beirut, which is a very old and rooted university which adopt the American credit system, accepted for several programs to have both ECTS and American credit on the transcripts. Qualification frameworks is an idea that crossed through. Quality assurance, we have already a draft law. In Lebanon, the problem, I think we have been successful in this mediation effort and in this dialogue effort. People are getting more and more convinced, but from convinced to doing efforts is something a little bit more for the action. So you need to, for example, we have decided that for this year of activity, we'll have a series of training sessions. So to go, I don't know, the question was, you asked the question about going to the people who are writing really the programs and the curricula, etc. So we decided to go in this way for this year, so it depends.
Yes, sure.
I just wanted to make a short addition concerning European qualifications framework. I just had some chances to participate in some transnational events, and I was a bit surprised actually to see that a focus on the European qualification framework as a reference tool in other countries, in other regions like Asia, Australia, and so on, is much bigger than in Europe. They are using this tool as a reference, and because they see it working and they see it as one tool that could lead a lot of countries connecting their qualification frameworks. And Europe is not so successful in implementing it by itself.
But would that, what you just mentioned, would that mean for the role of Bologna expert that part of the role might also be to monitor? Like you said, there are laws, but they are not being implemented. There are ideas, there are tools, but they are not being used, or they are used only very slowly. Should the Bologna expert then sometimes point the finger to what is not working? And if so, can the expert do that? Is the expert allowed, if I may say so, to do that? Again, I would be interested in getting to know your experiences with regard to that, whether you are doing it or whether you have thought about doing it. I suppose you all know your higher education systems quite well, and you know where the problems are, or are other people taking care of the problems?
Katerina Galanaki from the Athens University of Economics and Business in Greece. I do believe that as Bologna experts, we have the possibility to ask from our colleagues to use the tools, especially for ECTS, because the documents we are using can ensure transparency, can ensure fair treatment, can ensure recognition. So when we receive students to our university, we can ask from our colleagues, from our partners, to send us, this is what we are doing for 20 years now, being in the ECTS pilot scheme from 1989. So, and we have put everything on our website, so we say that to accept students, we need the student application form, the learning agreement, the transcript of records. What is this, the transcript of records? We explain. It's a document that shows the academic performance of your students before coming to the host institution. Okay, we will produce and we will send it. What I would like to say in brief, that it is up to us to let us, our partners, do the proper work, not for our benefit, but for the benefit of their students. And we have achieved it, and in several cases when they say, no, we don't give you these documents, then we say, no, we don't accept the students. And we don't do it to punish the student, we do it to protect the student. Especially the learning agreement document is very, very useful. And furthermore, the Commission has drafted in February 2009 the ECTS Users Guide. Valuable information is in that document, which should be used. And moreover, this famous document called the Proof of Recognition. They say, what is this? And then we explain what is this. And when we go to the institutions we have in Greece these sensitization visits. And under this scheme, we visit the universities, we talk to administrators, we talk to professors. We tell them, to professors, we tell them how to write their learning outcomes. To administrators, we tell how to use the ECTS as a tool of transparency. So what I would like to say that it's up to the Bologna expert to use the knowledge and the experience he or she has in order to protect mainly the students. And then our partners will follow what we ask from them to do. This is the only way, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for a very strong statement. I have a statement from the colleague back there who is already standing up. Yeah, okay. No, but we need it for the recording, so this is why you have to use the mic.
Yes, Johnny Lauritsen, Dean of Research Development from University College Zealand, south of Copenhagen in Denmark. I discussed these questions with not only the people who write the curricula, but also the teachers and researchers. And they asked me, Johnny, I'm a Bologna expert, Johnny, if you want us to do in this way that's described in the Bologna process, is it better than we do today? Yes, I say, because they do it in Germany, do it in Britain, they do it in Ireland. Today I've learned they don't do it in Germany, Britain and Ireland, but okay. Then they say to me, that's not enough. You have to convince us. You have to find some research that on evidence-based ground can convince us that the impact of the system is better than what we are doing today. I've seen a lot of very interesting tables today, but it's all concerned of the implementation of the Bologna process, not the impact. Do the students get higher marks in those countries, institutions where the system is very developed, or do they get more employment than the other countries? It should be very easy to make statistics of this question. So I lack arguments to my colleagues. I don't know if it's better. Help me.
Okay, thank you very much. You wanted to add something?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, regarding this point, and as Carmen said before, and now Katharina, there is this personal approach. That is when I said preachers among believers, is that, okay, we convince a group of people and we work with them. But, and that has a very deep impact, but it's very small. And it's a pity, because the political decision is higher than that. But it's important to do it, is the only way to do it. But as far as the Bologna experts teams are connected to the ministries of education or to the national agencies, there's a lot of political decisions implied there. So, if you say what you think, you run the risk of getting your head cut off and being replaced by another expert in the next round. So I think sometimes it's not so easy to tell what you think or to put the finger in the wound at the right moment. So, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think that some kind of empowerment to the Bologna experts groups should be done. I don't know by whom, but but it is not an easy task to solve. But I think it's so relevant and very crucial that somebody could say, the ministries of education, when they go back home after signing nobody knows what, as you said before, I'm just quoting you, what do we think at European level should be done at national level? But who dares to do that? If you don't have somebody helping you behind, you're in a very, very weak position there.
Yeah, but let me take up that point, because I think it's a really relevant point. And it begs the question, should the European level be more supportive? I mean, all of us have been appointed by, I think, the agency and we have been proposed by our national ministries. At least this is the way in Austria, and I suppose it's the way in all the other countries. So in fact, Bologna experts should have or claim a certain status if ministers go to Bucharest conferences, go to Vienna conferences, go to Leuven conferences and decide something, and then it's our task, in fact, to help implement. Now, we all know that it's the method of open coordination and so on, but still, would we need more backing by the European authorities, maybe, or by our own ministries, for that matter? Don't you have a point on that?
Well, I have a bit. First of all, I would like to elaborate more on that signing on. I don't know if anyone knows what the ministers are actually signing there. I think there are not a one international organization in European level which is involved in education, which wouldn't support Bologna process. I mean, European University Association is gathering, we are discussing about Bologna process, agreeing a lot of things, coming back to their universities or forgetting that. The same happens with the ministers. We are gathering in the Bologna minister conferences, signing something, and usually also maybe forgetting that until someone reminds them. And I had experience in this factor after Leuven declaration was signed. The student-centered learning was first included into the Bologna declaration communique. And it was a bit of a funny situation because after 1 year, we as a national students organization have prepared the first student-centered learning implementation methodology in, I don't know, at least in our national context, and we tried to push it through the ministry, and the ministry said, like, we don't know what you are speaking about. Then we said, but the minister actually has signed this, and that was a very good argument. It turned out that the minister didn't have any other way than to agree with it. So I absolutely agree that, and maybe I'm trying to answer the question from the back of the hall, Mr. there. Bologna process is definitely an approach. I mean, a personal approach of every expert is have to be respected. Me as a student representative, I think I have different view on this, different view on democracy. Maybe I never think what I say before, then have the consequences. So I don't know if I will be an expert for the next term, probably not. I also cannot trust the reporting of Bologna process, which currently is produced in European Commission, because I don't know if the data is not gathered right or something, but something is wrong with that. Because in 2009, Lithuania looked better than the United Kingdom, and that is really not true, I can say as a student. And on the other hand, again, going back to the Mr. in the back, there are no arguments to say that we have actually measured that if implementing Bologna can, I don't know, reduce youth unemployment or something. No, it is just impossible to do that. But the implementation of Bologna process depends on the actual perspective of that certain country. I mean, there is no magic tool called the Bologna process. There are plenty of tools inside the Bologna process which could be adapted to the national context. And if they are adapted rightly in the purpose of actually making the system better, then it will anyway be successful.
Any comments from the audience? Yes, clap. It's okay. It's okay if you agree. Right, there's a comment.
Thank you. Jerry O'Sullivan, Erasmus National Agency in Ireland. I'd like to go back to the comment of the Danish gentleman as well, because I think it strikes at the heart of Bologna as to what impact, what difference is it making to our systems. And if I could just, he mentioned Ireland, if I could instance the example of Ireland, because 27 countries that are represented here belong to a free labour market. And for that reason, we need clarity and coordination and coherence and transparency in the qualifications of a mobile labour force. For that reason alone, I think the Bologna process is important. But Bologna also is important from a national point of view, and in Ireland it paralleled developments that were taking place anyway. National qualifications frameworks are essential for your own national requirements because they provide a learning ladder for students and anybody who has engaged with the education system. They capture your knowledge and they are a system that facilitates the learner rather than facilitating the higher education institution, which traditionally has been the way our higher education systems have been organized. Quality assurance is a national priority as much as it is an international one. And the quality of our higher education is measured and benchmarked against other international standards. And the tools that are provided by Bologna are among those that can usefully measure quality. Learning outcomes, I'd see as critical for any student or employer. I'll speak from my own experience more than speaking from anybody else, but how much clarity did our learning when we went to higher education have? What did we know about our course in terms of skills, knowledge and competences before we entered? And were we satisfied at the end of that we had achieved attainments in all of those? I think it's a very important, and it is student-centered, and it makes the institution think about what they're providing. And equally, it makes the employer more knowledgeable when you're recruiting people as to what it is you can do and what you know. Reform, it's important from a reform point of view. Surely we cannot continue to provide higher education in the 21st century in the same way that we have been doing for many centuries before, in a world where you can have access to knowledge and information at the press of a button. We have to deliver education in a way that is now in tune with the technology that is presently available. And I think the diploma supplement is a very useful tool as well for certification, because traditionally all you got was a parchment that told you the name of the degree and the institution that awarded it, and very little else. So I think there are very useful tools that are not necessarily additional to what we have to do as higher education providers, but are very much parallel and complementary to what we do within our own national boundaries.
Well, thank you very much for your statement. I'm glad it's been recorded because it summarizes very nicely and very clearly, I think, a number of very important points. And this, I think, is also a good point in time to round up our little impromptu discussion on the experts toolbox, which has been opened at least a little bit. Now, my final question to the three panelists would be, what would be your wishes as higher education reform expert or as Bologna expert if there would be the fairy of the house, and you could give one wish to the fairy? Which wish would you give? Bologna wish. The Bologna fairy. Okay.
So, well, as I was saying, it's well, my wish would be, very briefly, is to be able to maintain the dialogue and the mediation, so that to make things change So I do believe what has been said, that all these tools I am convinced with, but we need dialogue because we might have other opinions. So I think that maintaining dialogue and mediation help to improve the system, and this would be my wish. Okay.
Talking about fairies, Tinkerbell said to Peter, just believe in it and you can fly. I think that if we believe, we can fly.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, judging from my personal experience, again, I've encountered that the implementation of Bologna depends actually on if people are doing their job and if they are able to listen. So my wish is that every single person at least in the education system, would do their job, what they are supposed to do, and they would listen.
Okay, and my wish would be to have many such wonderful experts as you for a very long time. Thank you.